More than one, actually. I wasn't sure I could play anything on this thing. It has been way too many years. So, my accordions. I want to tell you a story about my accordions and some friends and some things about my life growing up. First of all, from the time I was a kid, I didn't really vibe very well with my peers. I was a horrible nerd. I was very ugly, very awkward, and I just didn't really like my peers, especially girls. I felt the most uncomfortable around girls. They scared me. They would, one week they're best friends with somebody, the next week they're enemies and you don't even freaking know why. I just couldn't relate to things they were interested in either. So I would always spend time with people that were decades older than me. So I was a part of two different cults growing up. After we got expelled from one, we ended up in another, which was historically related to the other. But anyway, when I was still in the cult, service would end and I would go to the back of the building where the deaf sound man was at, because of course the sound man was deaf, of course. And he'd be back there with some other old goats and they'd be hanging out talking. And so that was where I would go after every service, and I would listen in on their conversations and ask them questions. They always had interesting things to say, about being in the military, being in the Navy, the work that they did, the farming equipment they had to repair, the hunting that they did, some jokes I wasn't supposed to hear, just all kinds of things, all kinds of information. At one point, there was another couple that joined this community, and her spouse never came inside. He always stayed outside in his van. And I found out he was from a different faith tradition. So she would come in to our service and he would be at his own service and then he would just sit out there waiting for her to come out. So then I developed a new habit of going outside the building at the end of the service. I'd go out to his van, he'd roll down the window, or I'd knock on it to get his attention, roll down his window, and I started to ask him questions, about his life and his belief system and where he lived and how he grew up and what work he did and what he loved. And his favorite thing to talk about was the Navy. This is David Zamitis. He loved talking about the Navy. That was his if he was ever sad, you just get him talking about the Navy. He'll be back to his happy self in no time. It's his favorite thing to talk about. And David and I became very, very good friends. Very good friends, so much so that he became my adopted uncle. So he was Uncle David then. And he was Lithuanian. And so he wanted to teach me about his Lithuanian culture. He invited my family to a Lithuanian activity, a Christmas activity at one point. And I think this also got me even more interested in the accordion too. Klezmer and polka music. I liked the Lawrence Welk show. And then Uncle David was showing me his Lithuanian culture and the dances that they did. He taught me the polka dance. And it was a real sacrifice for him to teach me that too, because by the time I knew him, he was a much older fellow and he had a lot of pain with his legs, but he did perk up when he did polka dancing. So he was able to teach me to do some polka dancing. And he taught me a little bit of Lithuanian. He taught me one phrase. Hopefully I can still say it right. Labas rytas vavole. I think that means good morning, little squirrel. Anyway, yeah. So Uncle David was a very important person in my life for many years. And even after I left that cult, they ended up leaving too. So we stayed connected. And Uncle David, like I said, he loved the Navy so much. And one time is one of my favorite memories growing up. I've got a couple. I've got to tell you more than one. He let me wear his suit from when he was in the Navy. It was this dark blue wool sailor suit, buttons and collar and hat. I put it on and I felt like 10 sizes bigger. Like I felt the strongest, happiest feeling inside of me wearing that suit. It was like putting on a super suit and suddenly you're like a superhero, or like, when Mario gets a power up and he's like, and he grows taller. I wanted to keep that suit. I didn't want to give him back his suit. I did give him back his suit, but I wanted to keep it. I wanted to wear it every day just so I could have that like strong, confident, happy feeling. It was a really cool suit. And so that was a fun memory. That was one of many fun memories with Uncle David. Another one was a Christmas where he brought my siblings and I Christmas gift that he explained was like the Christmas gifts that he got when he was a kid. And so I got a stocking, and it had an orange in it and some nuts and a candy cane. And I got paper dolls. And it was the most magical Christmas gift I ever received. That was fun. So, I always had these very interesting older friends in my life. I would always gravitate towards the older crowd. And so another older fellow, this kind of connects to the same interest, that's kind of connected with the music and the polka and everything. I met a gentleman named Mr. Pospischel up in the neighborhood where my grandparents lived, and he was a mortician and funeral director. So of course he had to play the accordion, right? And he had more than one accordion. He gave me one that was smaller, that fit me better. And I started learning to play it. It needed repairs. It still needs repairs. So I'm not going to show it to you. I can't even play it right now. It needs to be fixed so badly. This one needs repairs as well, but it's still playable. This one's my Russian accordion. This was something that another friend gave me. Stevie Gelbart gave it to me. It was his accordion. I knew Stevie Gelbart for only a few years. He trained me in some music for a while. Then he moved to Israel, and he died of cancer, I think it was, very sadly. But he was another influential person in my life who also liked klezmer. You can play accordion for klezmer. You can play accordion for polka music. So all of this kind of, led to more and more interest in the accordion. And yeah, so those were just some of my adventures with the accordion, though. I wish I'd kept it up. I wished I'd kept playing. I obviously didn't. But anyway, those are some of the happier memories of my time in the cult. I have a lot of dark memories because I learned, as much as I loved hanging out with these older people and learning from them, because of the cult environment, I experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of terror. And already being a weirdo, I had to mask a lot just to try to fit in anywhere. But when you're in a cult and you're terrified about a lot of things, you learn how to mask a lot more. You learn how to deflect things. By the time I was like 14 or 15, I was like, I didn't even answer the question, how are you? If somebody asked me that question, I didn't even ask it. I didn't even answer it. I would deflect really well. I would do it all the time. Because I was afraid that if my tone of voice said something, it would say something to somebody else, and they would say something to somebody else. And there's all kinds of scandal and crazy stuff happening around me, and I was just constantly terrified. I've been constantly terrified for most of my life. Just never felt safe, ever. I have to act like I do. I have to act like I trust people, but do I? No. No. The thing that set me free from the cult was reading. I always loved books, but then I started reading more stuff that nobody else around me was reading. And it set me free. In a way, it also left me more lonely because I'm still surrounded by people that believe many of the things that I grew up believing. And now I know it's all nonsense and pretty destructive lies. But yeah, reading. I've always loved books, but it's become more of an addiction. I was confessing it's become an actual addiction. It's become more of an addiction over the last many years of my life. I think it's because not only did books help challenge what I think already and set me free from bad ideas, they also provide companionship and they make me feel safer. Which again, I don't really know what it's like to feel safe. But I guess the more anxious I get, the more books I need. They're kind of like armor in a way. They're kind of like an escape, and they're kind of like armor, and they're kind of like my safety net. So the books are everything for me. All kinds of weird stuff happened in my life. I had an arranged marriage. Who has an arranged marriage? People in a cult. I knew so nothing about so many things. I still don't know a lot about so many things. I'm trying to catch up on so many things. Like at the betrothal ceremony, just a couple days before my wedding, I got a quick kiss from my would-be spouse. Just a tiny thing. Freak out happened. My mother panicked. The leader panicked. You're not married yet. Have you heard the book or seen the book I Kissed Dating Goodbye? Are you familiar with the purity culture? It's a nightmare. It's hell. It's so evil. It really is evil. To grow up, you're not supposed to kiss nobody. Be careful how you hug somebody. Definitely no. And you don't even know. You don't even know. Excuse me for saying this, but you don't even know how to touch yourself. And if you did, you'd be horribly guilted about it. Okay. This is so so oppressive and so terrifying an environment of belief that I grew up in. And so much naivety and so much ignorance and so much trauma upon trauma. But I'm still alive. I'm still alive, but I love my books. I love my books. I depend on my books and my imagination. I depend on my imagination. Definitely depend on my imagination. And I'm trying to heal and grow and change and keep learning stuff and become a better person. It's a lot of work. I have a lot of work to do. But anyway, thanks for letting me tell some stories to you about my fun accordion experiences and life. Hope you have a wonderful night. And maybe one of these days I'm going to get back to my accordion and actually learn how to play it again, because it's a shame I've got these two instruments. Well, they need to be fixed, but it's a shame I'm not playing them anymore. Such a fun instrument. I love the accordion. Anyway, take care.